compensate my bank for the after I've learned some lessons on how the SBA loan stuff does. And so I went to my bank probably in 1st of January this year. And I sat down and said, I don't care if this is an SBA loan, a personal loan, a business loan. I don't know what package you can put together, but what I need is investment dollars. Because what I found over that few months was, for me to go into this building, I needed investors. There was no way I was going to go borrow $500,000, $400,000, whatever it takes to open an indoor location. I needed some investors to go do this. It turned out that the guy who owned this building so happened to be sitting on a big pile of cash in the backyard. He was a doctor. He was an investor. He had multiple accesses to funds. And I sat and gave him the pitch. He was the guy that came out of the back office and came and listened to my pitch. That was always my, if I could get in front of you, I could convince you laser tag was good. And he came up, we sat down and we had a good conversation. This guy is from, he's out of Pakistan. I sat down, showed him the business plan, and walked him through, here's the progress of where this can go over the next year, and here's where it can go over 5 years. And got him hooked pretty easily. I mean, it's a good business model, as some of you can attest to. And so then I started learning was investor speak. How do you get investors, and what are they expecting out of things? And I guess, originally I thought, if you get an investor, yeah.
I was just going to ask you not to interrupt, but did you have a business plan at that point, or was it just basically a financial
prediction? I had a business plan. No, I've had a business plan for a long time. So sitting down with this guy, I found it's actually not that complicated for funding. I mean, you really don't need to necessarily know an investor to go figure out how to put this plan together. But the concept was, we needed to know how much money I needed. And inside my business plan, inside the prospectus and stuff, I showed I needed $350,000. And inside that prospectus, I showed exactly how I was going to spend that money. And if you guys would sit down and spend a little time on that, and I bet Keith's probably got this, especially from after already doing it, probably very well defined of how he spent his money and stuff. But I went in and locked down how I felt I was going to spend that money. And then as more time I spent with this building, this particular building, calling different inspectors and different things, I got a little bit more clarity on what a sign would cost, how much it would cost to go lease video games versus buying video games versus getting a point of sale system. How much it cost to go get a fire alarm inspector to come through, and all these costs and stuff that I was kind of guessing at, I slowly started getting very refined at on this spreadsheet. And about $350,000 was a pretty good solid number. It got me all the build out that I needed and about 6 months worth of expenses or costs for, okay, my lease may be kicking in that month and I still don't have necessarily an income yet, so it theoretically covered all these extra costs that could surprise me. So you take that $350,000 that I felt that I need, and this is what I learned from the doctor, a really good investor. You go decide as the number of units that you have in your company, you're going to take 40 units. You're going to divide your unit company into 40 units, and each unit is worth some value. You pick what that value is. It's up to you. I think we chose it first because we're still knocking this around. $25,000 for a unit. So if you want to come in and invest in our company, and you want to buy a unit, it costs you $25,000. Now you go do the math. 40 units is 100%. So if you buy one unit, you're getting 2.5% of the company, right? Which doesn't seem like a lot for $25,000 for a lot of us, but when you start doing the math, what you're doing is you're giving away some portions of your company. Well, you want to control your company. Most of us do. You don't want to go give this off to investors and they got all the financial gain of it. You're still working your rear end off trying to run a company that all of a sudden is not yours anymore. So you want to make sure it is. So here's the way it works. As the guy who owns the company, who's working the ideas, who's nurturing this thing, you get bonus units out of this thing that you don't necessarily have to pay for. So as the owner of this unit, you may assign yourself 8 units, 5 units, 6 units, whatever that case is. And as an investor in your own business, you're also going to buy units. So most investors want to see you putting money on the table. Not labor, not sweat equity. They want to see you putting money on the table. And so that's when I finally went to my bank, my personal bank, and said, okay, I want a loan, and this is how I'm going to go pull it off, this is how much I need. And I got access to like $100,000 to instantly go put my money on the table to put, and not just the sweat equity. So now I'm going in and being able to buy units out of my own business, plus I'm assigning myself units out of my own business. And then he's bringing in investors himself. So he's matching my buy-ins, and he's matching my $100,000 buy-in. So now, instantly, I have raised $200,000 of my $350,000. And then he's got doctor friends, because doctors do. And he quickly raised the other remaining amount within 2 days, he had investors that were already ready and lined up to match that, to get that total $360,000. And they each own roughly between 2.5% to 10%, depending on the investor. And the way he did that was not only did he put a unit that cost $25,000, but he also created an incentive unit. The incentive unit says if you buy one unit right now for $25,000, we will give you the option to buy an incentive unit for $5,000. So instantly you now have 5% for $30,000 instead of 1% or 2.5% for $25,000. So if you buy 4 units, you get an option of buying 4 of these incentive units for the $5,000 each. So we quickly got up into that. These guys were happy with their percentage points. I was very happy with my percentage points. And so right now we're actually kind of negotiating the terms of the I guess, business management thing. So one of the things I want to think is very important is the doctor doesn't know anything about laser tag. He knows a whole lot about doctoring, but he doesn't know anything about laser tag. And so what I want to make sure I protect is the business itself. I want to be able to own this business again 100% outright. So I want the contract and the ownership statements to say that. And so what we're doing is putting the terms together that says once they get some particular percentage payout, whether that be 50% of their original investment, 100%, whatever the case is, for negotiations over that, then they exit the business and then I own the business as a whole. Now that's not to say that I don't want these investors to go create Battlefield Houston #2 or #3 or go open up in some other location. These guys, I mean, the one thing that I've learned from this doctor is you just don't spend your whole money. There's no point in me saving up $500 million and you go creating another building for $500 million. 40% of anything is better than 100% of you risking your entire pile of money. So don't feel bad about working on this investor stuff. The building that we're looking at, the whole concept, is still looking at the village concept. We're still looking at this tactical laser tag thing where they're actually going in and doing battles for territory. Conquering rooms, CQB is probably one of the bigger concepts that kids want to play today, close-quarter battle, if you guys are trying to figure out that TLA, that's a 3-letter acronym. So if you're trying to recreate games and stuff, you're going indoors, that's just the most ideal thing to go. Now here's the big problem that I wanted big square footage for, because Keith's got something really good going in a smaller square footage, and he and I visited fields recently that are doing a whole lot in small square footage. It's amazing to us. But one of the big businesses that I do is I do project proms and after proms. These are the lock-in events that schools do during that last couple of months of the year. In the Houston area, these schools are paying about $25,000 to $35,000 per night for a lock-in of about 5 hours to come into your facility and take it over and just keep those kids in there. Obviously, one of the things you need to be able to pull that off is you need to have an occupancy rating high enough to handle the seniors and their dates and their moms keeping up track of them, to be able to come into that facility and enough parking hours to handle all that kind of stuff, enough things for them to do. So one of the things we wanted to make sure is that we had a facility that could handle that space-wise, but then not lose money for the remaining many years or many months of the year when we're not doing necessarily a project prom. So that was a big part of our marketing strategy, was to look for that space. And I think we've definitely got that with what we've accomplished. We're planning on leaving the basketball court as a basketball court and building a portable, maneuverable kind of a battlefield on that one. And of course, we'll have a fixed battlefield. And eventually, we will take over that indoor laser tag facility. It's still got all the laser tag walls, those little cute X glow-in-the-dark stuff that they like to use. We'll probably do a pretty good destroying thing on that and put an old abandoned laser tag sign on the front of it and kind of make it look like it got shelled out, but still you can play through it. So we'll get clever with it. I think that's the one thing about what we do for this tactical laser tag place is it doesn't matter if it looks old. I mean, the older it is the cooler it is. I mean, playing on the USS Orlick, when we were playing on the Orlick and stuff, the World War II ship, that was the coolness factor of it. I mean, just walking through that ship, walking through those narrow hallways, and the ceilings kind of close in on you as you're heading closer to the bow. And that environment is the coolest thing. That's kind of why I was interested in warehouses, because people are playing these video games and these maps, and it's nothing but a worn out old warehouse most of the time. So you can't go wrong with those kind of build-outs and stuff. So I'll keep you posted, guys. If you're having questions about how successful the investment goes and stuff, I mean, I am fully prepared to walk away from this. I've already got a plan B. I don't go into one thing with my money all committed in one direction and not have something ready to go to make sure that the business grows. So we've got Plan B already ready to go if this fails. But I don't want this to fail. Obviously, I want this building to go through because I think it'll quadruple the revenue that we can do in a year pretty easily. So I guess that's kind of it. You guys have any questions about another scary story about building stuff? Or yeah.
What is your total square footage?
It's about 34,000 square feet. Yeah, the capability to standing in like over 40,000.
There's some cackling going on back there.
Yeah. That's a big space. So. But it will be more than just laser tag. I mean, we've already made a deal with the guy called Netcore. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. If you're the nerd in the group, you probably heard of these guys. These big pods that all network together. You get on them and you're driving these mechanical robots that shoot each other with missiles and launchers. Battle tag. Yeah, it's a Mech Warrior style game. Good. So I knew I had a game
I
right
have
somewhere.
2 pods in my house.
Is it
The
the Gundam
Gundam pods?
Huh?
The Gundam pods?
You've gone beyond my skills right now. I've only played in them, and I know they're running on like an old British disc with coax style.
No,
Token ring.
they're all proprietary boards in them.
Yeah.
Stripped them out. I'm putting them for PC too.
Well, he's got all PCs in his, but he's going to come in. So we've instantly got we're leasing out those space to him and bringing those games in. So I've already kind of walked into this with how do I get more revenue per square footage on this thing. Of course, I think you've got to treat it like a furniture place. I don't know if you've ever met a guy who runs a furniture store, but they look at revenue per square foot as their furniture store. And so I guess that's probably why you can't maneuver around the couches when you go in there. But there's a multi-millionaire in the Houston area that sells furniture who I've had quite a few conversations with, who started his business with $10,000 in his pocket, and obviously he's done pretty well for himself. And he was made famous by doing these late night stupid commercials of, we'll save you money, and he's wearing a mattress costume, and he kind of got notoriety for his weirdness, but it worked for him. And also, we're actually about to start commercials. We're on the verge of doing commercials. We're kind of waiting to see if the building of the mobile is going to go forward or not. So, but that's kind of the plight so far. Anything else? Any other questions? All right.
Thanks very
Save us
much.
some time.